Yeah, it's interesting too. You see in politics where during a person's tenure, so like maybe Trump or Biden or Obama, like you take any U.S. president.
Yeah.
When they're in power, it's like they could do nothing right, and everyone's complaining. And to me, I just don't get how Clinton gets away with what he did, and now he's one of the highest paid speakers that exists. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
It's shocking to me that the tolerance once you're out of office goes, it's infinite. When you're in office, it's zero. I don't get it.
Well, so here's another idea that I think fits into this. It's something called the youthification of society. Mm-hmm. So, women say, 40s is the new 30s type of thing. If you look at the numbers, the data, the number one demographic of selfie takers is actually women from ages 40 to 60. And so they're now watching the next generation. Yeah. If you look at them watch the next generation, they're trying to take what we're building and try to regain the relevance using it. And so they're actually trying to relive their youth a little bit using this new approach. And again, they're just trying to maintain some significance before they all pass on. And look, just as a final cap on that whole thing, I love my parents, I really do. I just think that the whole idea of their generation, they're not pondering what they actually did. And I think that's really dangerous moving forward, is to not accurately see the past. Mm-hmm. If you move forward with lies, you'll just have more lies moving forward. And so I think it is important to have this discussion. And it also happens at a family level, right? At the family level, you got the grandparents who are like, why are my kids not married with 10 children and have a house already? I was working out in the mines when I was 12 years old, walking to school upside down in the winter. Like, they're doing that thing right in the middle of their grandchildren's lives. Mm-hmm. They're trying to figure things out in real time because technology just makes life really hard to figure out because it changes so fast. And right in the middle, in their 30s, they're criticizing their children. Mm-hmm. And they're basically saying, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, whoa, why do you think people have midlife crisis? Yeah. And right on top of that, you're piling on it and saying, you should follow my advice. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why it's happening, but ultimately, they're not going down peacefully.
No. But it's...
Man, I'm going to be in trouble after this.
It's super evolving.
Yeah.
Like, and that boomer crowd is vanishing, really. Like, it's...
Yeah.
It's the crowd just before me,
right?
Really, and it's they're not going to live forever,
and that's the bright spot here. I think they're facing this whole concept of death. It's coming for them. Mm-hmm. Death is the great equalizer, and I love reading books about sort of Stoic philosophy and everything, because I think society keeps forgetting that they're going to die. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not a nice thing to think about for a lot of people, but once you embrace that fact, like, you can start living a better life. You can start finding more meaning in the little things that you do.
It was actually an interesting time of my life because I've just gotten into my 50s. But it is interesting when you start to realize that there's less ahead of you than behind you. Mm-hmm. And the choices that you make now are more for your kids and for their future, because and maybe a slight exaggeration, I look at it and think I may never go to Italy, and that's certainly in the cards now. Maybe I will, but it's entirely possible. 20 years ago, I would have told you it's like, that's an absolute, I'm going to Italy at some point. But now it's like,
and you look at the boomers, they can't stop going to Italy. They can't stop going on cruises. Like, everything is like, I got to get it in before I die. I think what you said is really significant, because that's the transition into the solution. It's just accepting that you may not get what you want. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. As long as you're setting up your children and the next generation for something better, you should be okay with that. And I just think that that's very wise, considering all the things that you actually do, to actually start transitioning to that thought. Because eventually, at the end of the day, and I always think about this, what really do we get when we die, right?
Yeah.
Other than a memory of ourselves. So you kind of have to live your life in a way to optimize for being remembered. Mm-hmm. That's all you're going to get. And if you look at, even if you look at this from a purely like biblical perspective, Even God tries to be remembered. You know, the Pharaoh tried to be remembered. All they were trying to do is lock in their place in history as being worthy of being remembered by all of these people who would come after. And I think when you lose sight of that, you start living for some other thing, and you start making choices that make you not so fondly remembered. And that's where I think things fundamentally start to go wrong, because you can't just stick it to the next generation. You're just going to die, right? And so these kinds of ideas, like when I listen to you say that, I get very excited. I'm like, good, you know, I won't go to Italy. That may not be in the cards for me. And I'm okay with that. You know, I may never go to Tahiti. I may never have a place in Hawaii. Okay. And like, who cares?
So what?
So what?
You know, this is maybe an extraction of this as an interesting level. I was with a group of scouts one time. We were hiking, and it was a nasty uphill, seemed to go forever type hike. And there was this one kid that he was very happy and sitting home in front of his computer all day.
Right.
And he's like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, well, you're never going to see this lake unless we hike up here. And he goes, have you ever seen Google Maps? It's like, crap. You just took that away from me.
Well, you know, that brings up an interesting, you know, aside. I think my generation, the millennials, and maybe the ones after it, we're going to make our money from cryptocurrency. I really do believe that. I think we're going to switch, and then this $2 trillion industry is going to turn into a $20 trillion industry, and we're all going to be fine again. But my children are probably going to make their wealth in the metaverse, like the cloud, the video game world.
And at some point, cryptocurrency is going to stop being an industry, and it's just going to be a currency.
Correct.
Like it doesn't always have to have this appreciating sort of component to it, where, you know, it just, why would you invest? Like, I'm not investing in money. I just use money. And that's maybe the direction that it goes.